Champions League, the World Championship for professional drone racing teams, is coming to the end of Split 2 for 2023. Just this and one more race day before we go to Abu Dhabi for our live finals with our top 6 teams. As always, 2 matches for you, starting with Mach1, our all-female drone racing team, who have their new pilot Callie, Labeba, Steph and Hologram. Their opponents are Alpha Prop Racing, who are coming in with Braverick, Gabri, Keepy FPV, who we've known in the DCL for many years, and Prop FPV. In our other matchup, Cyclone Racing have the Ice Cheetah, Fluorescent, J-Box and Zion FPV, and they are ready for a battle they really want to win, because in doing so they'll pass the China Dragons, not just in the races but on the leaderboard. Creator Gamer, Kenrick FPV, Clone Number 1 and Ion FPV are more than ready for the challenge. As you see, China Dragons and Cyclone Racing so close, 2nd and 3rd in our seedings. Alpha Prop Racing and Mach1 not in the top 6. Both of these matchups will be over 3 races each. 2 pilots versus 2, then another 2v2, and then the DCL Big Heat where all 8 of them fly. If you win any of those races, you get 4 points for your team, and it's 3 and 2 and 1 point for the 2nd, 3rd and 4th places behind that. And when we tally up all the points for the teams, the winners get 3 points in the leaderboard, 1 if it's a draw. Nobody wants to come away with nothing, particularly at this stage of the season. The live Split 2 finals from Abu Dhabi are just a few days away, and only our top 6 teams will go there. 5th and 6th place will start in the elimination zone, where 1 loss gets you eliminated from the whole finals. The other 4 teams will start in the main round and essentially have got 2 lives. Someone will be crowned the Split 2 champion. Could it be Raiden Racing again? The track that we're going to be racing around here on race day 17 is in Proptown, our fictional location in the USA, which starts off with the sculpture and then heads up under this little subway here before we make a climb, go around a few pylons and head to a 6-stage ladder. It's a left-hand ladder all the way up. Try and find a line which smoothly but really tightly takes you all the way through. You go around this pillar here and then duck down through this DCL building. A left-hand turn out towards the streets, and then these cages are in front of you. Down, up and down, then around some pillars and then come out. Make sure you pick the right hole before you go through this tunnel. A left 180 here and a climb to then duck down. Go underneath 1 bridge this side and underneath 2 bridges on the other. Then you head out through the Torvald Tunnel to our Central Park through the Block Trade Gate and the Block Trade Slalom. And we're going to do this for 4 laps. So let's go racing with Mach1 against Alpha Prop Racing to start things off. Hologram and Labeba versus Gabri and Prop in the first race. Swinging around the sculpture and then heading out to the streets. Gabri and Prop FPV in pink for Alpha Prop Racing. Labeba and Hologram are in the light blue for Mach1. Oh, an early mistake there for Prop FPV. They hit the pylon, just bounced off of that, which has let Labeba get past them up in a 2nd place, although Prop FPV is already fighting alongside her and just moved back in front of her again as they go under the road into these cages, these sort of cube-shaped obstacles between all the pillars, and find your way up and out of there. Labeba in 3rd, a 2nd behind Prop FPV now, who's 1.7 seconds behind Gabri here, who's out in the lead, heading into the Central Park through the Block Trade Gate and then around this slalom. Back into the sculpture for the start of lap number 2, underneath SW Project and out to the streets. Gabri with a 2.7 second lead now, and it's slightly growing all the time over Prop FPV and the 2 pilots from Mach1. It's pretty smooth, fairly consistent flying from Gabri as they make their way out of the ladder now and drop down on the other side with another half a second between them and Prop FPV. Gabri is just smoothly flying out in front, and yet it doesn't look the fastest I've seen people fly around Proptown. Just seems like Prop FPV isn't as fast as his teammate, and unfortunately for Mach1, neither are Labeba and Hologram. And Labeba's been racing in the DCL for many years now. We had the DCL Women's Cup for a couple of seasons in 2021 and 2022. That was to give more women pilots the chance to be seen and get recognised by the other teams and promote the women's side of drone racing. That was really successful. Labeba was racing in those for the Spain drone team, SDT Perpetuum coin. Now she's in the women's team that they formed to try and get more of them together. Here it seems Labeba and Hologram are not going to be able to catch up with Alpha Prop, which is a shame. Gabri threading the cubes very nicely. Just about. Now coming out to go up and then down, and you turn hard out of there. Dive under one bridge, then you go underneath two to come back the other way as he's done. Back into the park. 5.7, now 6 seconds ahead of Prop FPV. Just can't keep up with Gabri at all. This is their final time into the sculpture then. Back out through here to the streets, then duck turn under this bridge. Then we move back up towards the ladder. There's the pylons. You have to go around the apex of them. Doesn't matter how high you are, as long as you definitely go around the apex of them, which is all good for Gabri. And they're out of the ladder. Now moving down, back towards the streets. Again, as long as you go around those pylons, it doesn't matter which side of lampposts and so on you are. Oh, Gabri does not want to be hitting part of the cages. It was all flowing quite nicely. That roll completely unnecessary. I don't think that helped them. And last time Gabri raced with Prop against Mach1, there was quite a lot of this showboating going on. I hope we don't get to see a lot more of it again today. Here's Gabri completing the run with an extra roll, which they didn't need and nearly messed them up. An untidy finish, but a win for Gabri.
Max points, guys. Max points. That's what we want.
Keepy is right. A 1-2 there for Alpha Prop with Gabri winning it. That's how you get the most points against another team. And it was good flying by Gabri, except for the end. On the fourth lap, some unnecessary flying and a little mistake or two. But even with a roll like that, just about getting it home. Steph and Callie against Keepy and Bravaric. Let's see if the Mach1 team can get a few points back here as they're 7 points to 3 down. Everybody out of the sculpture. Keepy and Bravaric now just ahead of Steph and Callie. It was Steph in second place. Here she is. Oh, missed the entry to go underneath the road. That's very slow. That's a fairly simple turn. That's been a bit of a mistake for Callie. This is quite slow for Bravaric making his way up. Nowhere near as quick as Gabri was. Misses the top. Got to go back for it. Sees both of the Mach1 pilots in front of him as he does so. And 5 seconds behind his teammate Keepy is where he is in fourth. Steph, let's get this tidied up. Oh, that's interesting. I've not seen anybody go through there so sideways before. Usually people complete the top turns, then dart between the pillars, and then roll again. But it's worked for Steph. Still in second. Bravaric is only a tenth or so behind her, though. And Callie just a little bit further behind. Now into the slalom at the end of lap number 1. Bravaric on the inside leads Callie into the sculpture, but Callie is on the inside on the exit. Not quite tight enough. Now to this bridge. Can't afford to get this wrong like they did on lap number 1. Steph is through and chasing Bravaric to the ladder. Now, Bravaric was quite slow in the ladder. Steph's overshot the entry. That's going to give Bravaric just a little bit of an advantage, and Steph isn't too bad on the way up, but not quite catching him yet. In fact, he's getting a little bit further away. It's now over a second between the two of them, and Bravaric heads into the cages, and Steph has got to keep her focus. And Callie is right with her too. Callie's caught up a bit. I think both Bravaric and Steph have lost a little bit of time, and Callie is starting to get into her groove here. Back with Steph, now finding herself in fourth. Callie, her teammate, the closer one to Bravaric. Racing to try and keep with him as they go into the slalom. Steph drops a little bit behind. Callie continues the fight up into second. A little closer to Keepy than she was. It's all a bit wild for Steph. It's all a bit swinging a little too much and losing a bit of time in all of those overturns. But now she comes into the ladder, overshoots the bottom far too far. You need to pre-turn that and make that a lot tighter. Steph comes out at the top, almost 2 seconds behind Bravaric, who is most of a second behind Callie. So Callie will try and chase down Keepy FPV, but she's got very little time to do it in. But if you make a mistake, Keepy FPV, Mach1 would love to come and steal that first place from you. Now Bravaric is on a bit of a charge. He's managed to catch Callie and is pulling away from her as they go on to the start of their final lap. Meanwhile, Steph comes around to get into that lap now. Steph and Callie, a couple of seconds behind Bravaric, and way behind Keepy FPV, who has been out in front and clear away from everybody for the whole race so far. Callie making some mistakes as they were coming through the earlier part, and down here at the bottom of the ladder. Oh, that's messed things up for Callie. That's going to keep her out of the battle, you would think, now with only about half a lap still to go. And Callie's the new pilot for Mach1. Steph is the runner-up in the FAI Individuals World Championship, no less, as of a few weeks ago. The runner-up pilot's second best woman pilot in the world. That's in real life racing. here in the simulator. She's going to try and hang on to second. Callie would love to get third back from Braverick, who's shot past her and put a few tenths between them. Can she get him on the final turns here? It looks like she might do, because Braverick's gone around to the 5th lap. There's no need to be doing that, Braverick, after a battle all the way through 4. He forgot when the finish was coming. I've seen that happen a few times before as pilots get so intent on their racing. Callie on the first lap hit the building at the bottom of the ladder and was a little bit slow to recover from that. Braverick hit the building at the top, then had to go back and make it through that top run. On the second lap though, there's his route into the sculpture and finding his way out of there. Nicely done, Braverick, but you don't need to do it 5 times. In the big heat, all 8 pilots will fly. Now, we could have an interesting little battle near the front of this one. Feels like Mach1 could be mixing it up if they can fly a bit more consistently. Alpha Prop not flawless, not immune from any mistakes, but 4 points ahead of Mach1 should put them in a very confident position. Callie through the ladder, just a little bit shaky, just having to sort of fix it as she goes rather than smoothly picking a line, and lots of drones in and out of her peripheral vision, but she's leading the way for Mach1. 3 Alpha Prop drones in front of her. Callie picking up the 4th scoring point, moving up into 3rd. Now keep your eye on the turn here. Yes, she's doing a right-hand 180-degree turn instead of a left-hand 180-degree turn, which might not sound that different, but left gets you around the pillar and right makes it rather dangerous. I've never seen anybody fly that turn in Prop Town that way. It's an unusual choice. Before that, you're doing a right-hand 90-degree. Maybe that's what she's trying to continue. Let's see if she does it on the next 2 laps. She did it in the last race as well. Gabri is getting closer to her, though, and trying to overtake underneath her. And as he does so, Callie hits the pylon, maybe distracted by the purple drone just suddenly appearing in front of him. It's still there. She's got vision of him now as she completes the ladder and moves past Braverick, who's gone wrong in the ladder again. Callie now 1.5 seconds behind 3rd. Coming out of the cages very nicely, but coming up is that turn. It's after this section here, yet she's gone right again. Looked quite quick that time. It's still an odd choice. And the dive down to the streets and through the subway was actually very nice for her too. So Braverick now 1.5 seconds behind. Gabri 2 seconds in front of her. Callie not giving up for Mach1. Oh, it's clumsy out of the sculpture. She's got to go back and finish it off again. And Braverick goes back into the scoring positions. Remember, it's only the top 4 places that get any points here. Mach1 looking if they can get a 10-0 sweep in the big heat. Well, Callie's got something to say about that, as there's nothing between her and Braverick, but she's on the inside after the ladder is completed, and Braverick's made it through this time. Let's take a look at Keepy, who is heading towards the end of his 3rd lap as he heads towards the park now, with a 5.5 second lead over Prop FPV and a 10-second lead over anybody from Mach1. You can see how tight he is to the sculpture. That's very nice. Very close to that pillar. Too close to the pylon. Oh, Keepy FPV all over the place after that. That really upset his rhythm. Now he manages to continue. Just less than a second between him and his teammate Prop FPV, and into the ladder they go. Keepy is picking a nice line. That's good, but the 4th one's a bit wide, and the 5th one's wrong on the entrance instead. Went wide on the 4th. Mucked up his 5th. That's mucked up his 6th. That's just ruined his run through the ladder. Prop FPV will get away from him. Gabri is still behind Keepy. Callie's still down in 4th. Let's take a look at Prop FPV's route out of here. There's the left-hand turn, which you combine into a climb up. That definitely seems the easier and quicker way of doing it. Prop FPV is pitching a lot, though, swinging up and down a bit, a little bit out of control. Now coming into the slalom, and they're surely going to wrap this up if they remember to go straight ahead, which they do, but Callie is catching Gabri for 3rd. Look at Callie's face. She can't believe it either. Callie comes in and takes 3rd place. Prop FPV out in front after the mistakes from Keepy. Otherwise, there was a battle going on for 3rd and 4th and 5th, mainly thanks to Mach1's Callie, who never gave up. Now here's Keepy going down on the final lap after they'd been so far in front, basically for the entire race, and the ladder was where they got Prop in front of them. Braverick hits this lamppost ahead. That's how Callie gets past him. Moves up into 3rd place through the fountains. No issues there. Callie steals 3rd at the end, but the most points overall it is, of course, in Alpha Prop Racing's tally of 20 points to 10. Now we're going to go around Prop Town with our other matchup from today, Cyclone Racing against China Dragons. It's going to be the Ice Cheetah and Zion to start, with Ion and Kenrick on the China Dragons side. Through the sculpture. close start between all of them, only really a quarter of a second between all 4 pilots, and you'd expect this to be closer than the races we saw earlier between Alpha Prop and Mach1. Let's go into the ladder with Zion, who's second, sees an orange drone, but that's actually behind him, as are both of them now. Good flying from Zion, slightly slower for Kenny and Ion. They'll be in second and third, and the Ice Cheetah just closely behind them now, looming and going past Ion here and there on a turn. Kenny now goes for the left-hand climb up, which is the far more normal route. Expect to see that by everybody, and dives down just a little bit close to one of the bridges on the underside of it. 0.6 of a second between him and Zion already as they now head through the sculpture onto the start of lap number 2. Then it's the Ice Cheetah in third, Ion FPV just a few tenths behind him in fourth. Heading up towards the ladder. Kenny in second, 7 tenths behind Zion as they go into this. Flying quite nicely, almost synchronized between them. Kenny comes out a couple of tenths nearer to Zion than he was, just ever so slightly, fractionally quicker through the ladder. Turning through the cages, coming up for it now. Oh, Kenny, I think he went for the wrong exit. It looked like he climbed a little bit too soon, pitched up, realized he was going to come out through the wrong hole, went back down, and it all broke apart from there. He's still in second, though. Still ahead of Ion, his teammate, and the Ice Cheetah languishing a bit further behind in last place. So currently, it's Zion at the top and Ice Cheetah at the back. China Dragons in the middle in a 5 points all situation. We're only just past the halfway stage. Zion won't see any orange drones anywhere near him as he climbs up through the ladder. It's not very smooth. It's not very regular. He's having to adjust it as he goes through, but he's managed to do all right there. Ion has actually passed his teammate Kenrick FPV for second place. The China Dragons pilots swapping positions. Zion not planning on swapping positions with anybody. He comes to the bridges, drops underneath and is away. 4 seconds ahead of both of the China Dragons pilots. 1 lap still to go. This race a lot more stretched out than we would have expected, given that these teams are so close in second and third on our leaderboard. Indeed, if they end the season in second and third, they'll race each other to start the live Split 2 finals, which are live from Abu Dhabi in just a few days' time. Zion up the ladder, cleanly away. Almost a 5th second now ahead of Ion. Into the cages, doesn't want to mess anything up here. 4 important points. China Dragons came and stole it from him, then that would make things a lot more difficult for Cyclone going forward. As it is, looks like they will lead this race out, and unless the Ice Cheetah can do something amazing from the back, or Ion has a bit of a mistake and lets him catch up, this is going to be 5 points all, which is not what either team want in this race. There's the 4 for Zion. Here's the Ice Cheetah trying to do something about coming in 4th, but he's a little bit further behind. He's going to pick up 1. We'll go with 5 all.
Sorry.
So close.
The Ice Cheetah was just 4 tenths behind Kenrick FPV at the end. Zion, his teammate, at the other end of the results. And you can see how tight you want to try and fly the column up the ladder, although you don't want to go that close to the building afterwards. Kenny, yeah, big pitch adjustment there. I think he was going up through the wrong hole and tried to save it. Zion, nice and clean to the end into the fountain. Fluorescent and J-Box against Clone Number 1 and Creator Gamer. Now we've seen these 2 pilots for China Dragons together as a pair again and again and again, and it's always so good for them. J-Box flying very well, was the best of the pilots for Cyclone when they joined at the start of 2023 and throughout Split Number 1. Fluorescent, the new pilot who's joined them here for Split 2. Clone Number 1 between those 2 pilots at the moment in second place, and Creator Gamer just a little way behind, a not very good start for him. And Clone Number 1 not really getting into the rhythm of this. You can see it's all a bit angular, all a bit twitchy. And into a column as well, that's not going to do him any good. He's now 1.5 seconds behind J-Box, and Fluorescent is passing him on the inside. Heading with him now through block trade into the slalom, but I think that might put the wind in Clone Number 1's sails, and he might realise, okay, I've got to step up my game here. Oh, but into the side of the sculpture! Just as it looked like it was starting to get a little bit cleaner for him, all gone a bit wrong, and Fluorescent leaves him behind by a second into the ladders. J-Box 2 seconds ahead of all of them and is coming out of the ladders nicely at the top. Drops down to the street. Fluorescent about 2 seconds behind him. Clone Number 1 almost 2 seconds behind Fluorescent. J-Box through the cages. Again, it's not as clean as I've seen it done, but it's just about working. Sometimes when you fly wild and crazy like that, you get through these corners impossibly quickly. Other times, it bites you. And into the lamppost goes J-Box. It felt like it might be coming. He hits that but stays in first place. Fluorescent still 1.7 seconds behind him. J-Box staggers onto the start of lap number 3. Now turns around the pylons and pre-turns into the ladder. J-Box so tight, that's good. And he swung out a little to try and keep it going as he realised he was maybe making it too tight. Hit the building, Fluorescent hits the lead. J-Box still in second, but clone number 1 now's got a target. He's a lot nearer to an opponent than he was. And clone number 1 still is not flying as well as I know he can do. James Govey out of the UK, rocking and rolling, but not in the right kind of way around this track. He's gaining on J-Box a little bit, and J-Box is gaining on Fluorescent, which we would expect as Fluorescent is nowhere near as quick a pilot as J-Box when J-Box is flying at his best. So we might be getting a bit of a collision towards the end of this race now. We're on to the final lap. J-Box less than half a second behind Fluorescent. Clone number 1 right alongside him as well. Fluorescent and J-Box and clone number 1 all into the ladders. Fluorescent the first one to break. Clone number 1 into the lead. Fluorescent fights him for it again on the inside, and clone number 1 goes back there. They go through the cages. This is a real war now. No one can break under this pressure. Fluorescent on the inside of all of these turns, trying to make it in front of clone number 1. He's going a different way to the bridges. I'm not seeing anybody swing across and turn right there. He's within half a second, but he's lost a little bit of time. And if clone number 1 can tidy it up, then the 4 points are surely his and China Dragons.
Yes.
Nice try, nice try.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that, guys. I mean, it's a tie.
It is indeed a tie, 5 points all. Clone number 1 getting the win there. And it seemed like that race got to everybody at different times. Here's J-Box on lap number 3, hitting that building, getting caught there for quite a long time, and hitting the ladder on the 4th lap when we had this big race on for the lead. Fluorescent goes through, hits the second part, is going quite well, and then comes out in the 5th run and needs another one. Goes back for that, and that's how clone number 1 gets in front of him. And clone number 1 makes a mistake on the 3rd one. If it wasn't for Fluorescent going straight ahead, who knows who would have won that. So the DCL Big Heat, we'll see all 8 of them flying, and everybody's got to shake off any mistakes or pressure or nerves and go and grab points for their teams as it's all tied coming into this. Half a second between all 8 of them, dipping under the route towards the ladders. There's going to be drones in and out of everyone's view here, except for Creator Gamer, who's missed the entry and has gone a long way off away from the ladder and is having to come back for it. Fluorescent comes out of the ladder, 1/10 of a second ahead of Zion. Kenny alongside him here as well. 2 purple drones just in front of him. Now only 1, now 2 again. Kenrick swings to the left, dips it underneath and takes the lead. That's good flying from Kenny. Can he get on the inside of this corner as well? No, Zion is just ahead of him. Zion in first, Kenny second, then Cyclones, Fluorescent and J-Box hovering around 3rd and 4th. Kenny a little bit slower into the sculpture, but still flying, hasn't hit any part of it. That's important. Can't do it all by himself. He's in the 3 points position for 2nd place. He needs clone number 1 to get up into the points as well, who's in 5th. Almost a whole second behind 4th, and even that's not enough points for them. More than a second now, in fact. Or a bad start for China Dragons. Zion, then Kenny, Fluorescent and J-Box, all within 3/4 of a second of each other, coming under the bridges. Kenny might know from his teammates that they're struggling a little bit if he can hear them in his comms, as he's just been passed by J-Box. 2nd going down into 3rd now. Zion still out in front. Then J-Box, then Kenny, then Fluorescent. There's all 4 of them as they now head down to the streets and back up towards the ladders. And we're on to the 3rd lap here. Mistakes start to happen. Position still switching around. 2nd and 3rd, J-Box and Kenny still fighting over that. Zion still most of half a second in front. On board with Kenny, who's got a purple Cyclone drone in front of him basically all the time. Although which one it is changing around. Zion or J-Box or both of them as he goes under the bridges and heads down. It is both of them now as we're coming up towards the end of lap number 3. Back through block trade and trying to turn on the inside. That's good from Kenny. Really nice cornering into the sculpture. Kenny chasing both of them hard between the pillars. The duck under the road is nicely done. He's up into 2nd. A few tenths between him and J-Box. A little bit more of a chance now. Gaining on Zion as they climb through the ladder, but Zion is flying it well. Zion going a little bit wild afterwards, but the ladder was good from him. And he's over a half a second in front of Kenny. But I think the cage is where Kenny was a little bit quicker. That was dangerous, but he's still in the air. Zion might be away with a win here if Kenny can't do anything about it on the bridge turns. And even with this brilliant fight that Kenrick FPV has given us, he'd need clone number 1 to get from 5th to 3rd to square out the points. A great race and a great win for Zion and Cyclone.
Let's go.
Good shit, dude.
Woohoo!
GG, brother.
Spicy time.
Yeah,
Let's
I don't know
go.
why.
1st, 3rd and 4th. Great work, Cyclone Racing, in a matchup they really wanted to win. Zion's laddering on lap number 1. That's not too bad, is it? Look how tight that is. Clone number 1 goes in, and he looks really quick on the way up, but believe it or not, he loses 7/10 of a second on the rest of the pilots as he goes through there. J-Box on the 4th lap when he was under pressure, making a couple of mistakes around the cage, which Zion didn't do. He led his team to a really good win over the China Dragons, and the bragging rights that comes with that if they end up facing each other at the Split 2 finals. 17 points to 13 after they drew the first 2 matchups. Elsewhere on our penultimate day of racing, XBlades remain undefeated, 17 wins out of 17, and they beat Raiden, who really needed a win. SDT Perpetuum Coin got one and moved past Raiden into 4th. The 2-time world champions, Raiden Racing, are in the elimination zone at the live finals unless they get out of that position. To do so, they'll need a win against Quad Force 1, and they'll need SDT Perpetuum Coin to lose to Cyclone Racing. Join us for those matchups on the last race day of Split 2 before our live finals. I'm Matt Andrews. We'll see you in the skies.